Hello viewers, we are happy that you've joined us on this day of Eid al-Fitr, where our Muslim brothers and sisters get to celebrate the end of their fasting period. We, pray that Allah responds to those prayers that you put across during the fasting period. Well, with us here in studio is a very heated conversation. Today we put into perspective, if I may borrow the words of Dambisa Moyo, who sort of evaluated that, low-developed countries tend to, practice what she referred to as an outward-looking economy, where, we attempt to attract foreign direct investment at the expense of the domestic players. And this is seen through the, economic policies, both macro and micro. Uganda has been, at the forefront of, perpetrating the kind of outward-looking economic policy, whereby, we levy so much taxes on the domestic players, and here we are again. The Ministry of Finance being the Ministry of Finance and URA being in arm's way with the taxpayers, and the government is proposing new taxes, to cater for new areas, and we shall just be discussing that in phase one. Phase two is about what transpired in the Constitutional Court about a fortnight ago, where the Constitutional Court unanimously said that the anti-homosexuality bill is in fact constitutional, with just a few, amendments here and there, but by and large it is a constitutional law. We shall, hear from those who care about human rights, what they think about that decision. Viewers, that is a mouthful of a preamble. Let me just introduce to you our panelists this afternoon, and in no particular order. The 25th Guild President of the Makerere University Business School, and also an ardent member of the National Unity Platform Youth Wing, is Bruno Kamoga. Your Excellency, very pleased to have you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Kidega.
How is NUP? I saw you guys came up with the alternative budget. I don't know. Do you also propose new taxes?
Of course, if at all taxes were yielding what they're supposed to do, then we would have. But now, there's no reason as to why we should suggest
more taxes. All right. Next to myself is a lawyer in the making, and the founder of this name, Tuzungumize Africa. The name is Lawel Muhwezi. Lawel was a regular, panelist on this show. For those of you who used to follow us when we were at the tree, down somewhere, Lawel has been with us from under the tree until we went to some veranda, and now here we are in a fully fledged studio. Lawel, thank you for always sparing time for us.
Thank you so much. My name is Lawel. As you said, I'm the founder of Tuzungumize Africa. Tuzungumize is a Swahili word that means let's discuss. I am glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, we are very pleased to have you. Last but not least on the show is Ivan Agaba. Ivan is an economist and also, an accountant by profession. And I think on this show, he offers us that unique economic perspective. Ivan, it's always a pleasure having you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Comrade Moses. It's always a pleasure being here to share my 2 cents on the issues that are being discussed, the issues that are trending. It's a pleasure to be on the round table this Wednesday.
Yeah. Let me just keep the microphone with you, Ivan. And you have the privilege of bearing the economic background and knowledge. Just a general question. What should a country in Uganda's economic status, knowing our debt burden, we can barely finance our national development, what would be a progressive tax regime?
Well, I take, or at least according to the dictionary meaning, tax to be the price of civilization. That we all aim at living in a better working world, but that better working world comes with cost implications, which cost implications must be placed on the taxpayer's shoulder. So tax as tax should not be a challenge or a problem. The challenge is in what context, or how is it, say, communicated or relayed? How is the information about taxes relayed to the common man in Chikubo that is doing business and say is obliged to pay these taxes? So I think maybe just to give it a bit of context, that I think the Ministry of Finance a few weeks ago presented a budget framework paper showing estimates that I think are still subject to amendment, but by I think the beginning of June or mid-May, they should have passed at least a budget. Now, I think for those that, our viewers that don't understand what a budget is, a budget in simple terms is a wish list, a government wish list. What you wish to earn and what you expect to spend, even when you do not have it. So the challenge is that where do you then get the money to spend? And that's how taxes come in. That's how taxes come in, that's how borrowing comes in, that's how budget support and grants from development partners come in. So I think it's good if we brought it from that context. So I think last year's budget, 2022-23, was 52 trillion.
Yeah.
I think it has gone up by 6, according to the estimate,
Yeah,
to 58,
58.3.
So, but you see, when you look at 58.3, it's not the actual budget. The actual budget is about 20 to 22, which is what you call the discretionary budget. The budget that the people in parliament can tamper with and sort of repurpose, get some money from here and put it there. So the other money on the 58 trillion is either going to pay debt or it's already committed to either peace and security or infrastructure development or things like recapitalizing UDB. So it's already committed to certain priority areas that it's supposed to go. So the actual budget that the parliamentarians play with is about 20 to 22 trillion. So with about over 20 trillion going to debt refinancing, debt rollover, and I think the payment of interest charges.
Yeah.
So, and the 6 trillion, according to that framework paper, is actually not going to the parliamentarians for them to allocate. It's actually being used to pay the extra debt refinancing costs that the country must shoulder.
Debt servicing.
Yes, the debt servicing cost. So, I think this has been put on URL's shoulders, that for the country to be able to keep in good, I don't know, books with its multilateral lenders, it must pinch more. It must bite the taxpayers more. So you see, tax is a non-quid pro quo. I think I remember my economics very well. That
I think it's a quid pro quo.
it's a non-quid pro quo.
Yeah, non-quid pro quo.
It's non-quid pro quo. In that,
You give it to that
for example,
specific
Kampala contributes the most towards tax revenue. Ideally, 20%, or rather 80% of the country's economic activities in Kampala, but it has the worst roads. The good roads are put in Pakwach and in Karamoja that contribute comparatively less to the country's coffers. So it's non-quid pro quo. You do not give it out in expectation of anything.
But
Similar.
No, but if we take that approach, aren't we then exempting government from responsibility? Because if government can take that money and then choose whether not to,
Because we trust that government.
Well, I think
okay.
resource
That's the principle.
Resource allocation and sort of I think I would call it resource allocation. Equitable resource allocation is to be done by government. The government is supposed to invest in things that the ordinary businessman
Is going to benefit
cannot
from.
risk to invest in. Things like roads, things like airports. You see, if say Uganda government had not revived the airline, which private businessman would revive it? So those are the things that government is ideally supposed to use that money for. Things like, and you know, Africans by their nature do not chase development. So you must extend development to them by opening the country up. If you do not take a road to Pakwach, the ordinary man in Pakwach will find no reason to use the road, but at least it is there. So mobilize them to use the road that you have extended to them. That's how Africans are handled. So based on, I think now we are in the last quarter of the financial year that is ending. URA has had a revenue shortfall of about 2.1 trillion. And I think it's this that is making them bite more and go after the businessman more. And this has resulted into the fracas that you're seeing between the traders and URA. They've closed. I think this is day 2, or rather day 3. So because of the IFRI system,
just before we get there, I'll just speak our perspectives generally on what we understand from a tax regime, and I think you've done very well in that regard. Bruno, when we say taxes, you know, what comes into someone's mind? Like,
well, thank you very much.
Is it a duty of a citizen?
If at all I'm to remember my little SST, because I remember that term tax, and we've grown up knowing that this is a compulsory fee that each individual has to pay in regards to your salary, be it even a product that you're purchasing. Each product is taxed because it's a responsibility, and I would say it's a mandate for each citizen to pay back. And well, when we to look at the reasons as to why citizens pay taxes, we expect something in return. That is the improvement in the social services. With social services, we're looking at the hospitals, we're looking at the roads, we're looking at the schools. Well, now, if I told you to bring in new taxes every now and then, yet the ordinary citizen is not seeing the outcomes of the taxes that they've been paying, then the government is failing us. Well, I would like to put it to everyone's attention that Ugandans have really tried so much to pay taxes, most especially for those who have been in downtown. I've been in business downtown, and I know what it feels like to pay rent, to buy food, to pay the toilet or latrine that you're using, to pay for the rubbish collection. You know, you're paying for license, you're paying for business registration, you're paying income tax, withholding. So it's really a lot. And if I told you, you see that the government is trying to bring another burden onto the people that are in business, meaning that they are just failing them and trying to bring in other people. It's very absurd that you will see the head of state finds it very easy to meet those who are going to bring money or the investors to the country, but he cannot sit down with those who are in his own country so that they can find solutions, of which I think that Ugandans are really understanding, and they are very, very humble people. As long as they get something to eat, as long as they get something to sustain their lives and also earn a living. So I think the government should revisit or revise that. It's not really something that you can convince a person who has been in business. For example, you've seen the IFRIS, that electronic physical receipting and invoice system. I believe that it's a culture in business to dodge some of the taxes, because, you know, if at all you choose to pay everything, it will become very heavy to the extent that you get none of the profits that you expect to get. So IFRIS has been introduced in a way that they want it to be compulsory. You'll find that very many people are going to bounce out of business. You'll find that in downtown, very many businesses don't celebrate their first birthday. Why? Because of the taxes that are imposed. So I think the government should revisit that and also see a way. We see that they give tax holidays and exemptions to the people who come from outside. and most of the investors are in manufacturing or production and all that. But now they're taking on also the small businesses for ordinary citizens, meaning that an ordinary Ugandan is being failed in business, and we cannot all be civil servants. And I think these civil servants don't know the pain, because for them their business is to eat from the money of the taxpayers. And I will drive this to corruption. It's like they're widening their base of corruption and also putting down the person who is trying to get a little income or profit from the business so as to sustain a life. Someone has children at university, secondary level, you buy food, because people in Kampala don't have gardens here. You'll see that even those people that have been trying to buy some land to do farming, you've seen the new taxes that are being introduced on land. So life is becoming so hard in Uganda. That is why you're seeing everyone wants to go for cheyo, not knowing that there's less production and also less importance in that. Because also when you come back to Uganda, again that money will be taxed. So it's just a cycle.
So, Comrade Moses, maybe before you go to Lawel, the issue about IFRIS. IFRIS is a system used to collect VAT. VAT is actually the tax.
The 18%?
The 18%,
Yeah.
yes, standard rated. But you see, this is tax that does not affect the businessman's capital. Ideally, you pass on the 18% to the client or the customer, you collect it. Yours is remit it as you collected it and pay it.
So
It's not part of the capital that you say collected with your
so
partners.
it is a burden on the consumer.
Yes,
not-
it's a burden
not
on the
business,
consumer.
but on the
So
business.
the challenge with businesses is businessmen, they do not want to religiously remit and pay that they
18%.
collect from the customer. That's the challenge.
Fair enough. Lawel, and I want to get you and the same question, just our appreciation of tax. And the positivists would argue that how do you expect a government to finance its development if you don't want it to tax? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it goes back again to the contract between the citizens and the government. That as citizens, we, like you say, the advantages of how government invests, but even outside those economic advantages of government investing, facing those risks, the government has a duty to provide an environment in which the citizens can thrive, which includes providing public services, right? Because we agree that as citizens, we all can't be the ones that plan for ourselves. So we trust a particular body of individuals with handling our resources, and therefore they can offer these public services, including institutions such as the criminal justice system, such as State House, such as security departments and all those things. Our only duty then is to be able to sustain them through payment of tax, because that's what the government uses to put in place all these this infrastructure that protects us as a citizenry. And so for my approach to taxes is that every citizen who perhaps wants a government that functions or that is accountable to them must first on their own pay taxes to that government for it to be able to function. And I think Adam Smith did a good job in giving us the principles of taxation and how we can fairly have a tax regime that works for us as the taxpayers and I think for government. But I think as developing countries, the question is not on whether we should pay the taxes or not. We all want to pay that tax, but then comes when most of those taxes are not either fair in how the government legislates, or that even when they are fair, how the government uses our resources. Because my duty to pay those taxes is also hinged on the fact that when I pay my taxes, government also does its job in provision of the services it ought to. And oftentimes we find ourselves in situations, especially in poor countries, where government cannot account. Not only does it account, but sometimes feels they don't need to account for our taxes. And I can tell you for sure that if it existed in countries where there is value for my tax, we would be happy to pay those taxes. And I'm sure there are countries where that attitude exists, where people are willing to pay as many taxes as possible because government cares and provides for them. That's my approach to taxes.
Yeah. Okay, just rather as a matter of follow-up, is that because I agree with you, there is a strong connection between confidence in the government vis-a-vis tax compliance, that the people must feel confident in the government for them to be compliant with the tax regimes. So to what level is the citizenry in Uganda confident about their taxes going to the government?
I mean, this is not. I don't. It's an obvious question, really, because these new proposals come against a background of scandals where the parliament, for example, among others, has been like carelessly or in an economically careless way, swindling or misappropriating the government, the resources of the citizens. You had a situation where a commission of 5 people sat and decided to award themselves 1.7 billion shillings. And so if you are a trader who is going through what my brother Bruno is talking about, and on the other side, the people who you're painfully paying these taxes are awarding themselves for the job well done as commissioners, you find it quite unfair. And so when, for example, Bruno, as the one who speaks for the trader, says that these civil servants or politicians are not widening the tax base to make things better for us, they are widening it to further enrich themselves. You understand where they are coming from. So in terms of confidence, we as Ugandans really don't have confidence. It is okay to have an economy that is shrinking, that is failing. But when you know that the government is doing all it's trying to do. I mean, all of us, when the US and World Bank threatened to withdraw their funding, we are willing to say, let's be frugal as a country because of the need to protect ourselves. You know, we can face this heads on. But that cannot happen when the government, which we are supposed to support in making such IR decisions, is also eating the little frugal resources that we want to preserve as a nation. I'm okay. I see Ruto struggling, and I'm sure the capital markets have these days proven him right. That even when the policies are not going right, you know that he means it and that he wants to do something. And I'm okay with living in a country where government is deliberately pursuing a policy, which might fail because of what's happening at the world stock market. Things are not going well. I can explain the variances in the dollar, but not in a country where the president and the people around him and parliament are misusing those monies.
Wow, very, very deep context there. Ivan, I'm trying to put a correlation between aid vis-a-vis a tax policy or a tax regime. Is that if you have a country that has so much grant, donation, and aid coming into the country, I think that is bound to make a government more complacent towards devising innovations of how to generate revenue domestically. Because they somehow know that, anyway, whether we fail here or not, China will send us money, World Bank will send us money, IMF, and all these things. So in your evaluation of things, is there a correlation between aid, and Dan Bisoro says it very well, dead aid. Is there a correlation between dead aid vis-a-vis the creativity and generation of domestic resources?
No, I think that there's that old African adage that you get to value every drop of the water if you carry your own pail. So I think now it's high time, and the situation is ripe. The conditions are ripe for Ugandans to carry their own pail of water. Museveni, that the fountain of honor and undoubtedly the father of the region, and actually the father of the continent, has clearly clearly drawn a red line, especially on issues regarding homosexuality, and this has led to aid being cut off and reduced. So it means that governments must devise other means to mobilize revenue and to keep government going, to extend social services down to the people, regardless of the challenges that may be there. But money must be collected. Because you see, Uganda has a tax to GDP ratio of around 13.9, almost 14. That is small compared to countries that we are benchmarking on and are talking about, where citizens actually are proud of paying taxes. Like in the US, for example, I mean, one of the criteria used by voters to give you their ballot or to give you their vote is whether you are a compliant taxpayer. Trump has leveraged on that to become president the first time. So a tax to GDP ratio of 14% is too low. Studies say that countries actually begin to have tangible growth when their tax to GDP ratio surpasses 25%. So now the US is like in 30, the Scandinavian countries I think are the highest in 40 and above. So it means that Ugandans are not paying their fair share of taxes. So for me, I don't mind those that want to hold the government accountable. But you see, hold it accountable when you're paying your fair share of taxes. You see, but most of this money that you see the people in parliament throwing all over, this is usually debt money. This is not money collected from among the Ugandans. Even when the money collected from among the Ugandans is what eventually pays on those loans.
But on account, does it reflect that it's debt money?
I think it's all our money as a country.
It's all our money.
I think when we have our national coffers somewhere, there is no line that says, now this is debt
That's
money,
the point I'm making.
and then this is money collected domestically. It is our money.
Yeah.
You see,
They
you
even
do
care
not
which money,
irrespective of
as long as it's money.
see,
Yeah.
you do not rule or lead the country for more than 3 decades if you are not a realist. You see, Museveni is not a Nobel Peace Prize laureate in fiction and literature. He understands this country. So I think, during the first years, being the Marxist leftist he actually thought these things would work until he realized that Ugandans cannot contribute adequately enough to fill the resource envelope. So he resorted to patronage. And it has worked. The patronage system has worked.
Which things don't work?
Because Ugandans cannot contribute enough money to the resource envelope for him to extend the social services that they very much desire. So he has resorted to patronage. Simply get kingpins from Bukedi, you get the honorable speaker, and if anyone there speaks about her people will come out to defend her, because as she eats, they also eat. So it makes it simpler for him to manage the country. You see, now this is real, what happens on ground. So I think not until Ugandans can contribute their own fair share to the taxes, I think the people that could rightly want to complain, I think would be the Indians or the Asian community. Those people contribute 70 to 75% of the tax revenue here in Uganda.
Would you guys love to? Please.
They contribute.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, 100% different from my brother. I would like to defend fellow Ugandans because I'm an ordinary citizen of this country. I've been a business person. I've been in the politics side, etc. So I've been in different spheres of this nation. I can defend the nation, or the ordinary citizens rather, that they have played their role. Ugandans have tried to play their role. And it's very absurd that in this country, for those who play the game of being corrupt or the dictatorial agents, because they play both roles, you know how they play their games, they have been defended. Meaning that for one to be corrupt in this nation, it's not a crime. It's not a crime. Recently, I remember when the Right Honorable Speaker, AAA, was pointed out on certain monies that they stole. She had an event in Bukedi, is it? Yeah, where she represents. And she came out to praise the president. For us, we believe in the name of the Father, the Son, and if the Father tells us to go to the Son, the Holy Spirit will protect. And from nowhere, the president also came out. Among is a very good person. She has worked such a nation, whereby for those who play dirty games, they are forgiven, and they take on the game. And I don't know what my brother is talking about, but I wouldn't wish to have an apologist on such a panel, because these are matters of the nation that are going to defend our future. Because I do believe that there is no patriotism in this country, because the people who are taking on this country only think about themselves and maybe their families, but now it goes back to us. That's why I always tell comrades in this generation that it's upon us to discover our responsibility and also fulfill it. So I think we need to draw more light on that.
Sure.
We need to draw more light on that. We should have a heart for the country. Let us not just speak for the sake because we're benefiting in the current regime. But
that is Bruno's personal opinion.
Yeah.
And he speaks it entirely out of his own.
Sure.
Because it really hurts.
Evolution. Yes, Lawel, a rejoinder to what Ivan was saying.
So, Ivan, I don't know why he's punishing us, the Ugandans. One, he says that Museveni realizes that Ugandans are not willing to pay taxes. To assert that is, first you need to establish that Ugandans are capable of paying the taxes that you want, and that they are not paying those taxes. Because it is true that the government has a duty to create an environment where the economy is able to grow in such a way that the citizens can then pay the taxes. And I think that's why, I don't know if it's consistent with Marx, the fact that you need to first focus on the primary level, which is infrastructure, construct roads, construct electricity, and those enabling infrastructure for business to stimulate investment and production, right? And I think that the government of Uganda has tried to that extent, right? But I don't think to enough extent, because if we are an electricity producing nation like ours, you do not want to have areas like West Nile where they don't have electricity. So I think that it's not that the citizens, that it doesn't work, that Ugandans don't want to pay taxes, it's that the government on its own, they are unable, because one of government, maybe fiscal policy, has failed to create an environment that enables Ugandans to pay taxes. I am willing to challenge him that even if all Ugandans and if this was implemented to the dot, that you still not gain meaningful revenue that is enough to sustain this economy. To say that Ugandans don't want to pay tax is to exonerate governments of its responsibility to create an environment where citizens can thrive in an economic sense. The second thing is to say that he understood that patronage works. I think patronage works to the political extent that Form 7 as a politician to keep in power.
But not for the country's
not in the economic sense, that these two must be separated. But I want to borrow what he says. I think what we are having currently is a product of that patronage. And again, I think the discussion we had informally, the trade-off that once you choose patronage, that once you choose to stay in leadership for 30 years, to sustain that regime, you must you must invest more in power, in consolidation of that power. That is to say that, like you say, you allow Anita Among to control that level of money, the Nanka, it was General Saleh, and all these individuals to have the power to do the political management of the country. But you trade off that for the economy itself. The two cannot coexist. And I think, and I'm willing to make the point, that what we have currently is not a failure of even the Ministry of Finance at policy level, or even the taxpayer. It is the trade-off between the politics and the economy that there's little Kasaija or Ramadan can do in this current setting. There was a time when interns wanted just money to get to start working. Genuinely, these guys reached the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance. They said, Ramadan said, I don't know where to get this money, right? And genuinely, sometimes the government doesn't have money, including paying public servants. Like there's when they take like 3 months without being paid. I'm told lecturers at Makerere for the last month haven't been paid. There's when genuinely there is no money to run even the economy. But there is always money for the political players. Even for a re-election, that money never misses to exist. So I think what we have is the prioritization is one that sustains the politics. And if you're Museveni, that's okay. But if you're arguing as a citizen and a taxpayer, that possibly is not okay.
Actually, now this has dragged me into the next conversation, which is about our choice of investment. Because I listened to Ekesa last night. He was on NBS and he was saying that
Amos.
Yes, Amos, and he was saying that this country is not investing in things that generate taxes and that generate revenue for the country. And he was saying that, look, guys, the money that we invest in things like, for example, tourism, vis-a-vis what we would potentially get out of it, is a typical mismatch. That we are rather investing in things that are not generating for us money as a country. So I don't know, maybe we need to revisit our prioritization sector. How much money are we putting into the private sector? How much money is available in Uganda Development Bank, whereby small, medium enterprises can have access to without having to go through the bureaucratic process of lending through the commercial banks that give money at 24% today. So where are we putting the money, guys? Bruno, where are we putting our money as a country? Because I think if we invested in things that are able to create revenue, we would not be where we are today.
Yes,
so
sir.
where is the money going?
Comrade Kidega, I would like to affirm this, that Uganda has money. We are not a rich country, but we have enough money. And well, once the system is dead, obviously, however much you bring in policies that are to help citizens, they will not work out. Well, look at the PDM, look at the youth fund that has been implemented. That money has been confirmed and it has come on the different levels, parishes, sub-county, etc. But this money has been stranded on that level because the system is dead. The corruption that starts from the topmost offices has been also reflected in these lower offices. So once the system is dead, however much you bring initiatives that are to help citizens, they will not work out. So I think that has to be rectified. However much the government says that we're going to bring this, we're going to invest money in this, that very sector where you're investing money will be swindled from that sector. So I think the system and also administration of how the implementation is done really matters. It's just like you'll see the Ministry of Education, they have changed the curriculum, but once the system of dissemination or preaching that new curriculum is dead, then it will not work out to the people that is being spread. Those are the students. So I think it really matters the channels really matter, and that's the system. Once the system is dead, then everything will be dead. You cannot implement, you will not see the results. So I think we need to work on that. And our biggest problem right now is corruption. You see that a lot of money is lost to corruption. And once the head of state doesn't come out firmly to punish the people who swindle money or the corrupt people, then we shall not learn. You've seen the one NUP comrades that have come out to seriously hit one of our comrades who has been a victim to these matters. However, I will not go into deep details because this is where the apologists want us, or the dictators, they want us to be fighting and all that. I will not talk about that. But now it's the role of the head of state to go into that, to see how they're going to punish the people who are the agents of corruption and all that. So I think the government should work on that.
Okay, interesting. Ivan, still the same question is that where should our money be going? But also the aspect of tax administration. Because in the new proposed budget for the next financial year, URA intends to spend a good chunk of its budget towards tax administration.
Yes.
They in fact intend to put up
an academy.
Yes, an academy. So how important is tax administration in realizing revenue for the country?
So I think the conversation now has been around widening the tax base instead of deepening it. And URA has come out full throttle to do that. Through tax education, I think I've seen URA, they usually have tax mutuals webinars, they have the Tujenge bus. They actually rally these traders downtown and sit them down and actually tell them these things. and these things in the language that they understand.
They even did translate for the
They even
Chinese.
they have taxpayer appreciation awards.
There is a Chinese booklet for the taxes.
You get it?
Yeah.
So they even have taxpayer appreciation awards. There's a tax justice club, I think, in Makerere. I used to hear of that. So is the case in very many other universities. So they've tried. They put up something called voluntary disclosure, where you can come clean and then you can begin on a clean slate, paying your taxes. This IFRIS, the fiscalizing of receipts, to have transactions taking place, being captured by the system in URA in real time. So you cannot hide. And not only does this help them collect the tax, the VAT more, but it also has an accounting module. It actually helps the informal man do an accounting of sorts. So they've introduced digital tax stamps. So they've done quite so much.
Then where is the contradiction? Because the people downtown are saying we don't want this if we think.
I think the challenge is how they get to see the money that they contribute being used by those in the very big offices. And it's why at Ministry of Finance there's been this whole conversation about austerity, fiscal consolidation, that if only we could restore fiscal flexibility by reducing borrowing, say. There has been a conversation around rationalizing the government parastatals.
Yeah.
That is a conversation that keeps dying away on arrival. Because it's not the first time it has come up. It has come up very many times. Lowering the cost of public administration.
And do you think that is partly owed to the patronage system? Because, you know, because that system entirely benefits from having as many redundant institutions as possible, so that you're able to appoint as many people as possible. So
exactly my point. The cost of public administration. We are headed towards a heated election season. How many municipalities and districts are you going to see being created? I'm told in West Nile there's one called Bidi Bidi. There are people there that are pushing for Bidi Bidi district to be created. And that's the one that I know. Things like...
Can you take some
yes.
comment from you?
I think something on IFRIS. First is, I think there is a complaint on how there's need to galvanize how the businesses in informal businesses run versus the system. So for example, there is such a thing as you give someone products and they will pay with them. And I think usually government also does that it consumes products and then pays like after 5 months. The system assumes that the transaction has happened at the time of the receipting. I don't know, so there comes need for a reconciliation for if it is maybe to be alive, those business realities. The other thing I think is on the tax on, I think, at the border versus at the point of selling the products in each kubo. I don't know if then it's possible for IFRIS to be able to have where you pay at the same time. But also I think that my honest opinion is that IFRIS is such a good thing. And I think Ramadan has consistently emphasized it, that you need to put these transactions online to avoid even corruption, because less people get to touch that money, whether it's the collectors or it's going
open governance,
it's bribing the revenue taxes. Guys. That because the system is automated, you have less people physically interacting with it, so you reduce maybe the corruption that comes with the contact. Yeah. Right, but I think there is, but also is that there's those traders who are not genuine because they thrive on not remitting the taxes. Like you said, the VAT, there are those whose marginal profit is such that they have to retain some of that tax. And of course, it's not government's problem, but again, in the grand scheme of the economic environment, it's a bullet they are going to have to bite themselves.
Sure. Okay, Ivan, let me begin with you after the short commercial break, and I will allow you to complete your point.
So, as concluding...
Just in a minute, and we'll take a break.
In a minute, yes. Things like budget repurposing, foreign travel, things like workshops, conferences and seminars, those are things we need to do away with. The graph that he has been talking about, but I think adopting e-government and having transactions go electronic, and last but not least, having value for money for government projects. I mean, we have a project in Lugoa that has been there, taking government money, but we do not seem to see anything going. Of recent, police was auctioning a plane that they bought at, I think, 28 billion and found it was not fit for purpose and function, but still in good condition. And this was money spent. So, value for money. I think I'll just conclude by saying that.
Okay, interesting. Let's take a short commercial break. Just don't move because we shall be back shortly. Bye-bye.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. We hope that you are enjoying the Eid, public holiday. But well, for us here, we are talking about taxes, and we shall be concluding with that. Ivan, let me just give you a minute to conclude your point. Then I want to introduce in, of course. I'd forgotten, sorry. We have been joined by the fourth panelist. Andrew Bisoro is the name. He's a lawyer and also a member of the Yellow Youth Movement, top leadership. Andrew, we are happy to have you. Karibu.
Pleasure to be here.
How is YY?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yes, Ivan, I'll give you a minute just to wrap up your point. Yeah.
So I think before we started the show, we were talking informally. And we were sharing examples of supply chain supermarkets, I think, that have come to Uganda and have left. Talked about ShopRite, talked about Uchumi. We had Nakumatt here. We had Tuskys. Jumia has closed, I think it's food.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I think they announced closure of food. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. So, all these point to the fact that there is no effective demand here, because this is what the figures say, that there is willingness to buy, but there is no capacity to buy the goods. So it is why a typical, say, S&P 500 company or Fortune 500 company cannot come and start here, not even in Uganda, but East Africa. That huge companies like ExxonMobil cannot set up fuel dispensers here, fuel stations here. Saudi Aramco, British Petroleum, BP cannot set up here. They leave that to the Batembe of fuel, the Totals, those are the Batembe of fuel. Because it's those that can sell you at an amount and at a price that you as Ugandans can afford to buy and to take in. This is what statistics say. So, the point is that it means that if we demand less, the tax that would be charged on whenever we consume is also comparatively less. No, but that is not it anyway. Look at how much we save. That if, say, we were to save as a country and grow a very robust saving culture, it means whatever we would save, we would invest. So we would not need to borrow. We would run to capital markets through Uganda Stock Exchange and get capital from there. But it's not, the capital market story is also another story. I don't want to get into that. It's a show on its own. So Uganda has a long-term savings to GDP ratio of 11%. That's way below the Asian tigers that we want to compare ourselves with. that we were at the same level in the 60s, the Malaysians. These guys save almost 35-40% of their GDP. So when they come here with the money that they have saved as foreign investors, we have nothing to do but bow for them. These are the realities that Ugandans must stand with, and I'm so sorry for being a very rudely brutal guy, but these are facts as is. So it is why NSSF, it actually realized that the growth in their members' contribution was small compared to the potential that there is. So it's why they introduced voluntary contributions, that even when you do not make the 5 employees that every company must have, as a single employee, as Kidega, as Ivan, you can go and open an account with NSSF and begin saving. They have all these financial literacy seminars. Because whenever we save, what has been saved is invested. So we don't have to borrow. These are statistics as they stand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that is a very deep context. Andrew, let me introduce you into the conversation. Your perspective about Uganda's tax regime generally. The sentiment on the show is that Uganda is outward looking. We want to attract foreign direct investors, whereas the local businessman here in Uganda is suffocating on taxes. And even when they go ahead to pay the taxes, there is no value for this money. Let's hear what you think.
Once again, my name is Andrew Bisoro, a lawyer, and from the Yellow Youth Movement. The tax regime for the past years, I can't say it's been a cocktail, promising, not promising, until recently when the Minister of Finance announced new tax proposals for the financial year 2024-2025.
Yeah.
A lot of outcries downtown. People are crying. As I talk, I don't know whether these downtown traders have opened today. I presume they have opened because they said they have to give special consideration to the Muslim community that will be celebrating Eid tomorrow. But it's not well. As a person, my personal take is that the tax regime wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't really be bad. If at all, the taxes were really put to what it's supposed to do in terms of service delivery, effective service delivery. You'll find that someone downtown, there's a lot of rubbish, there's a lot of potholes, the roads are not made. So you find someone saying, now you're putting an increase on, say, mineral water. I saw an increase on the mineral water, on flour, most of those domestic products. You're putting an increase on the taxes, but you're not giving us the commensurate services. Ideally, as a person, I believe Ugandans would not be making this so much outcry if at all their taxes were giving them the right services that they deserve in terms of good health care. You reach hospital, you find medicine, you find when the stores are stocked with medicine, you go education-wise, you find schools, teachers being paid well, students taking on their learning very well. You go to the local government, you find services being given to the people effectively. As a person, I believe that if that is done, the Ugandans are good to go. They can really be okay. But what really nags them to the last dot is the fact that the services are a bit wanting. I know provision of services is something that is realized progressively that with time they perfect. But then I believe as a country, we really have to put a lot of efforts in as far as service provision is concerned to the citizens. Otherwise, for as long as our services that the government provides to the people do not tally with what they pay in taxes, Ugandans will always complain. The other comment is that it really pisses off to find an ordinary citizen downtown paying taxes, straining to pay taxes because no one pays taxes when they want. Many people
Are compelled.
yeah, they are compelled. But I would like to make a call to the Ugandans that it is actually our obligation and duty as citizens to pay taxes.
Article
But
17.
exactly. But many of us pay taxes when we actually do not want. My point I'm alluding to is that it really nags to see people strain to pay taxes. But when our leaders, topmost leaders, are using the hard-earned and paid taxes by the citizens, ordinary citizens, to do luxury, it really hurts. Because most of the people, by the way, less tax comes from uptown. Most of the tax is collected from downtown,
The central business
the central business.
district, yeah.
You get
Mukono,
exactly
Wakiso.
those people that are in arcades, what they pay a lot of taxes. But it hurts to see a lot of extravaganza being done by our leaders. I am not going to mention, we all know this. It really gets to our nerves as taxpayers and as Ugandans. But one thing I want to echo is that the taxes would actually not be good, would actually not be bad. I know Ugandans would be enjoying to pay taxes because they know that is their duty and obligation as citizens. But I'm saying, can we have accountability for the taxes being paid by the Ugandans? There should be accountability. How? In service delivery. And it hurts so much. I was reading about Switzerland. You find a speaker get into office on a bike. You see that kind of humility, humbleness, not guarded. Actually, at the Parliament of Switzerland, at the Parliament of Switzerland,
Yes.
very many people go there to. It's like essentially, it's like a tourist attraction. People go there to visit, at Parliament. But if they told you the budget for security at Parliament, you would actually say that Uganda is going to be under attack the next day, which is not the case,
Parliament spends how much? 2.4 billion per day.
I presume.
Yeah.
So now, when an ordinary Ugandan who is downtown hears of that, they'll ask, what is that they be spending on? What is that they eat there? So as a person and as a Ugandan and a youth leader, because I happen to be the chairperson of the young people of Bondibujo, my humble call is that let the taxes be put to use. I do not see any need of us having these tax increments, having to impose so many taxes on the citizens. We have to do an audit check on the extravaganza we do.
The cost of administration.
I was happy when I saw government thinking about the merger of some of the government institutions, state parastatals, and authorities having to merge some of them. Now you see UNRA, you see Ministry of Works. That's a replica of, and you find huge budgets. So now, once UNRA and Ministry of Works are merged together, you will find government saving a lot of money. These entities use a lot of money in say, paying for rent for their premises that accommodate their offices across the country. And if that money is saved, it can surely be put to good use.
True.
So I really request the government technocrats to sit down and rethink on how best Uganda can save money. And instead of straining citizens, we actually use what we already have.
The frugal.
If we put what we already have to good use,
It can do
trust me, this
something
country will go far.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I see a lot of shortages. I see a lot of extravagance. A lot of money is spent on things that we are not supposed to spend on. I was seeing the budget for the Independent Electoral Commission. They released it, I think it was last week.
Money for prayers?
They intend to organize a national prayer. As we pray for elections to be peaceful and all that. And yet, as a country,
at 800 million, was it 500 million?
I don't remember. So
Around 500, yeah.
yet, as a country, we already have a designated national prayer day. Can't we incorporate that? Pray for a peaceful electioneering period during the national prayer breakfast.
They're giving the money to God.
Would that money be saved?
Fair enough.
So
as you conclude, because I want to bring in Ivan and the rest to just give us your parting shots on this particular matter. And I hear you loud and clear. I'll give you an extra 2 minutes later on to summarize. But Ivan, as I come towards you, no, actually, Lawel, as I go towards Andrew, is that your parting shots on the way forward regarding our tax regime and policy. What needs to be done?
I think, don't be pessimistic. I think we are a confused nation. The only person who knows, what they're doing is, I think, President Museveni.
What do you mean?
Because he has, a deliberate interest to consolidate power, and then that throws all of us here in a state of not knowing what to do, including the Minister of Finance. When you look at the tone and the state in which Matia Kasaija speaks, he is also stuck. He doesn't know what to do. You see Ramadan, who had a lot of goodwill. He can't do anything about it, because if you put money in parish development model and the returns are not there, you put money somewhere and the next day you're being called that this money needs to be transferred somewhere else. I'm told you have people in Ministry of Security who access the parish development model to do security work. You have, like you were talking, the luxury at Parliament, where you have Speaker of Parliament buy dresses worth millions of dollars as if she resides in Birmingham Palace. You wonder, because for every luxurious expenditure you make, there is a cost to that. It means you have not invested in an alternative which would perhaps be productive in returning that amount of money. And so I agree with you. And it's not just that Ugandans don't see value for the taxes, that's why they don't want them. It's that also there is no environment that enables them to make so much profit that they have the luxury to pay their share of the tax and remain afloat. That doesn't happen. And I was telling him informally, we're having that discussion, that if you have Ichumi, Nakumat exiting the market, because those ones you can monitor them and they meet their share, the business doesn't make sense. They have to go out. Yeah. But somehow, why the downtown person in Katwe is thriving and getting more money and can open up a bar is because they are not paying their fair share of the tax. If really they had to pay their due, they're going to exit, right? And it's absurd. It's a catch-22 situation because they must pay the tax, but they also must remain in. Look at the debate around alcohol, and I put it in my status today. You have Sarah Opendi saying, we need the alcohol control bill. Yeah. We need to minimize consumption of alcohol. What I think is that the problem is not alcohol, but the irresponsible drinking, which is more common in the villages, this thought park, this high alcohol content kind of alcohol. But in the new taxes, you have a new tax of 2,500 shillings on the flour used to make beer. What that essentially means is that you're increasing the cost of the beer within the formal sector, the ones we consume at Chadondo. What that means is that either I'm going to stop taking beer or I'm going to resort to the cheaper beer, which is not tracked by the tax regime. It makes things worse because people have to take the cheaper alcohol. Or
also government
it means that Uganda, which has the Nile breweries and these big beer producing companies which have been sustaining the economy, which pay much more tax than the people in Chikugo, don't have people demanding for beer, you know? Because we have very many people who are willing to go to a supermarket which is selling beer at 500, but want to go to Cielo because the beer there is at 7,000. If you make beer at 7,000 in our spaces, as we drink from Namugongo and the small bars, means we have to resort to the cheaper alternatives. So, which means either you're not the alcohol control bill won't work because people will again have to demand for the poor alcohol.
Cheaper alcohol,
Or Nile Boys can no longer pay the taxes it has to pay because the beer can't be approached. It can't be afforded. You talk about real estate. Again, we live in a country that doesn't have a deliberate housing policy for people to afford housing, right? The people who are engaged in real estate are largely the corrupt officials who can throw money and construct buildings. Because in the business sense, there is less return on investment in real estate in Uganda. You take much longer time to get your money back when you construct an apartment than maybe if you invest in treasury bills. So again, you have a taxes on that. I think that the people who have continuously stolen money and invested in apartments will. But the normal Ugandan who wants to buy land, to buy cement to construct a house, won't have the opportunity to, because you continuously make things expensive. Water, and I can tell you, I come from Kashari. Buying water for me in Kampala was a luxury, because I used to think that water is supposed to be free or it's supposed to be cooked. Yeah, I'm being honest. And I know many people who think that using their own money to buy a Wenzori is like some sort of luxurious thing. If you increase the cost of Wenzori, or even, is it Hima, which is 500, I'm less likely to buy this water. But also we continuously, I think at the health level, advise the investment, people drinking water, because you don't want to extend that burden on your health sector, you know,
unhealthy water and things
so I think that we are having these insane taxes because somehow we must get money since we passed the LGBTQ bill, we're no longer getting the aid we should get. So somehow we must tax everyone, but again, I think conclusively, again, it goes back to the prioritization of government. Because even the frugal resources we have, if we decided as a country to tighten our belts, maybe we would say through. But once we are tightening our belts as people are buying dresses of millions of shillings, right?
It defeats the purpose.
And I hope Kamoga is willing to be honest as an MEP supporter. You have a commissioner who thinks in this poor country, they have done so much a good job in 2 years as to deserve a service award of 500 million shillings. I don't know if you get it. Like, it's insane. And I think that, I don't know if the situation will get better, but that's like my honest views about the new taxes and the general investment climate we are in.
Fantastic. Kamoga, your final words. But also, Lawel has asked you to be honest on
before I proceed, I would like to applaud my brother from Bundibuja. You know, it's very difficult to find young men and women dressed in yellow, being honest. Most of them are apologists. But my brother, I've liked your submission and I'm pleased. Thank you very much. Well, I would like to put it to everyone's attention and also inform everyone that believe it or not, that the economic system of this country is dead and almost buried at this moment. However, now the only way we can make it better, or the only way it can resurrect, is by restructuring. We need to reform. We need a revamp, meaning that the system is already there, just like I earlier said. So, but it is very difficult at the moment that even the people who are in charge of this country are not willing in whatever submission they do. They are dodging. They are dodging ways of revamping the nation, and I believe that the only way we can restructure is by a change of power. So I can maybe agree, and also we can also be on the same table and in agreement that the nation or the people running this nation are tired, and we need at least a new system. Because if at all they cannot work on corruption, then the country is not going anywhere. So once we change power, then maybe we can have something special. And maybe we shall go to the priorities. We talked about the priorities.
Maybe that's where the question is, change power to what alternative?
Well, you'll notice that when someone stays longer in power, they'll get used to a certain system and they believe that they cannot be subjected.
So what's the alternative in
The
this case?
alternative is for we, the youth, to make sure that we get to know where the country is supposed to go by getting a person who's going to restructure the country. I haven't mentioned any name, but we need to change power. Well, then the priorities.
I thought you would mention your president.
Let us not go where you want me to go. So the priorities of the budget, I think once upon a time, Nelson Mandela said that one of the investments that you can work on is education, so that you can have a brighter future for a generation. Well, last year I was in South Africa, in one of the prominent universities, Fort Hare. Fort Hare is in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, and this university, 80% of the students are on government. 80% of the students are on government. They have accommodation. They have a very favorable system of learning. And this is a university where Nelson Mandela went. We had also Robert Mugabe, actually even Yusuf Chironde Rule attended Fort Hare. So I think the nation has also failed to work on the education system. You'll find that it is a very small percentage, or less percentage of students who are on government sponsorship. And you should know that very many people cannot afford university education. And there's that grade of people who take themselves as intellectuals, the people who have gone to university. And I don't really agree with that. They have taken themselves to a certain level, and you see that these are the very people who have become a problem to the country. These are the people who think that they are more special and above the law. So I think now we need to rebuild on the education system so that everyone can think for this nation. Because you will see that some people are not even given a chance to sit on certain panels because they think that they have not had enough education. I believe all of us here have been to university, but I believe that very many people can speak and also elaborate on matters out of common sense, not these economic terms. Yes, people have a lot of knowledge.
Sure.
So, by the way, to be an MP, you just need a senior 6 certificate.
True.
To be a mayor, you just need a senior 6 certificate. So I think the nation has to work on its education system, the health sector, because of course people won't function when their health is not good.
That's true.
So those two, the education sector and the health
And
sector.
education. Wow. Yes, Ivan, but as you make your parting shots, just two things that I would love you to maybe emphasize on is you mentioned these so many multinationals that are leaving the country, Nakumat, blah, blah, blah. How do you compare that reality to the mere fact that at the same time government has a policy that gives them tax waivers, incentives, you know, there is access to cheap labor and
Tax
all
holidays.
that. Yeah, tax holidays and etc. I don't know, how are they unable to function even with all these subsidized, you know, opportunities?
No, I think that the government of Uganda has had this deliberate policy of import substitution and export promotion. And any player world over that comes to help us either import substitute or promote our exports will be granted the incentives as you know them. So the challenge with the businesses that I listed, does any of them help us substitute imports? They actually bring imports for Ugandans to buy. Most of their shelves are filled with imported products. Do they help us export or promote our exports? Definitely not. So it's why they are not granted those incentives, like the Chinese that comes and opens up.
Manufacturing.
Yes, like the Chinese that comes and opens
Opens
up a factory in Namanve or somewhere in Luwero to make tiles.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, but I think as my parting shot, I would like to say that, you see, when I was still a student of dialectical materialism, they used to tell us that, you see, for every thesis, there must be an antithesis, for there to be a synthesis of ideas. That I'd have listened to everyone's opinions, and you see, So opinions are like noses, everybody has his. So
Very subjective.
it's very good for everyone to share their opinion because they are rightly entitled to it. Now, I would like to conclude by saying that, you see, the challenge with capitalism, this capitalism that I think engulfed us without us knowing, I think as Uganda, is that it commoditizes everything. It commoditizes all the factors of production, from land to labor, to capital, to entrepreneurship, to even time. You see, in Africa, time is not a factor of production, but world over, time is a factor of production. It's why you find employees at a certain factory or company being paid on piece rate. You're paid per the number of hours that you work. Time becomes a factor of production. Health has been commoditized. I mean, we're all here during COVID and we saw how the bills people were paying in hospital were. It's now a commodity. And I think those are the issues that Obamacare was trying to address in the US. Making health a commodity. Things like education. You've seen receipts of school fees to certain schools here of 4 million. S1, first term. So you wonder. So that is the capitalism that we live in. And whenever capitalism, anything that is commoditized must be subject to tax. So it's why you'll have a tax on land, you'll have a tax on labor, you'll pay PAYE, you'll have a tax on capital, the banks that would call sellers of capital also pay tax. So tax is now unavoidable because we live global capitalism now. It's something that we must embrace, it's something that we must sit well with. So, but very, very lastly, I think, something called Musevenomics. And like the name Musevenomics, you see, the Fountain of Honor believes in the household as being the foundation of a nation. And he believes that if you improve the inflows or the income of a household, then you're improving a nation.
That is Marxist.
By extension. So once you're able to begin with a household and then get them from the subsistence lives that they've been living into the money economy through PDM, and have them engage into the 4 sectors that he talks about. The agriculture, commercial, the IT, the industries. I tend to forget the other one. But the 4 sectors that he always talks about. I think the economic sort of metamorphosis that comes with that, I think will enable Ugandans pay more to the tax coffers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andrew, you have the final words on this topic.
I would like to make a comment on the IFRIs. I've seen many business people, traders downtown trying to make a lot of negative comments about that IFRIS system. But I think, I know URA must have made some efforts to educate them about the system, about that solution. It's actually a solution. But I think the efforts are not enough. I've tried to read and research about the system. I believe it's good enough for us as a country, and even the traders. We've been having a system where URA gets to your business and starts to assume while they're assessing how much tax you're supposed to pay to that regard. But here is a system that where they are telling you, you know what, tell us how you've been conducting business. You feed the system yourself. Then after that, the system actually shows you how much tax you're supposed to pay. And another advantage is that in using that system, it helps you in returns. Very many business people have a problem with filing returns. So I think that system also helps in URA is able to track your returns. And in case there is money that they are supposed to refund to you, the e-receipting, it also helps to track how much is supposed to be reimbursed to someone. So I think traders should take this system with good faith and as something that is going to help them better their businesses. Only that URA needs to go down to those business people, the traders, and educate them more about the IFRS. You don't just bring a new solution and impose it on people. You have to do massive sensitization, tell them the advantages and disadvantages of this system and the greater good of it to the country. But one thing I have realized is that because we've all been downtown, we've all been in business. Very many business people want to dodge taxes. So now they see this is something that URA is trying to nab them, and
People fear the government.
URA is going to nab them and have them pay taxes. There are people who make abnormal profits downtown and they do not declare. So now, this system is good. It will enable people. It is, like I said, it's our duty and obligation to pay taxes.
Sure.
As I conclude on the matter, I'll still reiterate and say that it is not bad to pay taxes. Every one of us should actually find pleasure. It is one thing that makes us statesmen and stateswomen. When we do our obligations and duties as enshrined in our constitution, it really makes us good citizens. But then, I'll not shy away from saying this, people, the ordinary citizens, should see their taxes being put to good use.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In terms of service provision, let them get the services. We have essential. We have essential taxes. We have essential services. The healthcare, education, infrastructure. I'll give an example. I sleep in Chireka. That's where I reside. But the small path from Nakawa to Chambogo is almost taking 3 years under construction. That road. Sometimes you even find the machinery there when they have already abandoned the road. Another example of a very busy road, that is a busy road by the way. It connects the central business district to Mombasa, to the Busia border.
Yes.
It's a very busy one that that government should actually be very concerned with any road works that are on that road. Another road is the Mitiana Mubende road. For those of you that have traveled to Fort Portal using those roads, this road is actually taking about 5 to 6 years under construction. And we are a country that is prioritizing infrastructure. I am not trying to minimize the efforts the government has put and the resources the government has put towards infrastructure development. We are thankful, but we are saying
More needs to be
we
done.
can do more.
Better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, wow, fantastic. So, colleagues, let's shift gears to, and because our time is fast spent, I will just invite us to make comments, really, in 3 minutes. And as you do that, you comment on the Constitutional Court decision, but also your parting shots as well, in about maybe 3.5 minutes each. So, Lawel, I'll begin with you, and rightly so, is that you have appreciation of being a lawyer, and you maybe entered a human rights class, and I don't know, what does the constitutional decision make to you?
So I think the resting ground was that in our preamble of the Constitution, our objectives stipulate that we should be alive to the social or the cultural values of our society. And I think that was the basis on which the judges distinguished our case from the other precedents. I think in India, to say that for us, any laws should be consistent with the cultural values, and therefore, as a society, we do not believe in homosexuality. I think that was, I don't know if that's a clever way, but I think it is a justifiable thing to do if you want to, as a judge, establish, if you want to establish a unique precedent. And I think it sets a good precedent also for many African countries that are against LGBTQ rights. There's also, of course, grounds the fact that you seek pleasure in something does not mean that you have a right to do it. And it was compared to things like, I think, is it bestiality or these other things that involve rape, things that, but just because you find pleasure in something does not essentially mean that you have a right to do it. But for me, really, my personal take, is not even on the legal basis. It is on the sense of, I think, autonomy as countries at state level. I think that whereas we treasure the West and everyone, I think that at some point they should be willing to allow us have these internal discussions on our own. And I think I saw a tweet by Andrew Mwenda saying, look, the question of LGBTQ rights is our question as a country as well, that the external players should not, when they continuously intervene, it looks as if it's externally being imposed
geared
on us.
by them.
You know, that this is, and I think it is okay that whether we as a people want LGBTQ rights or not, I think this is a discussion we must have and conclude as a country. But also, I think that the West...
Okay, what do you say to those liberal Ugandans? And I'm sure you know so many of them who are saying that, wait...
There are not many.
but
I should...
who are saying that, look here... because I know you know Professor
I know them.
Tamale,
Yes.
Lokonyanga, and all those guys. They're saying that, but look here, I mean, everyone has a right to choose.
These are consenting adults.
And I think
that liberal argument.
I think this is a discussion that people that are interested in the law should be willing to have on who defines what is a primary human right, and that is there such a thing as that being defined within a context of a people deciding what they want to accept as a human right or not, right? Because we have very many jurisdictions like Russia, China, etc., that don't acknowledge these as human rights. Of course, there are those who have positioned themselves as more progressive, as more understanding, or having the moral authority to define what is a universal human right or not. But if we as a people, for example, don't believe in marrying our siblings or our parents, because we don't find that okay as a culture, can you support the same grounds that because we as a people, as individuals, we should have a right to live this single life the way we want to, that if I seek pleasure, and I should be able to do that as a singular human being, if it does not harm any other person, because that's what they usually say. If I choose how I want to use my private parts, I should be able to do it because it doesn't harm any other person. And that's okay, there's a school of thought, but shouldn't there be such a thing as a people, which is a state, a country, because things like state and nation, people have told me
they're different.
Serious concepts. But okay, let's say a country. Shouldn't we have a discussion on what we consider as acceptable or not? And for me, that's my position. And of course, I also think then that if we as a country decide that this is what we want, it comes at a cost. It's a trade-off, because the US has the money that you need, so you must be willing to tighten your belts. I'm told the US is not willing to give any money, even if it is a grant, that a government official can access, unless it is the health money for I think
HIV.
For HIV and all that, and then maybe the non-state actors. So we must. This is a contest. I don't know if maybe the Brits, not the Brits, the other parts of the world are willing to stand with us, I think it sets a good precedent for us to say, look, as a country, we should be able to have this debate. I don't think anyone hates, essentially hates. I think there's like a general position that as a society we don't want this. I challenge all those who want to blame this on Museveni.
Is there scientific maybe research?
No, I want to.
Is there scientific research?
Scientific research. I don't think there's conclusive.
Because is it okay? Because my question would be from the scientific perspective is that are these people normal? Can they get medical assistance? Is it an aspect of hormonal imbalance?
The problem is that I don't think there is a settled position within science on whether it's normal or abnormal. This debate still goes on even between the left and the conservatives and the liberals, even within the West themselves. It's just that somehow the left have this captured. They control the cultural industrial complex and all these things. They manage to influence and have their way. But the debate on whether it's settled is still not there. As an individual who has a history in psychology and human behavior, I think people who think it's abnormal are not unreasonable to say that.
Yeah, okay. Bruno. Bruno.
Well, I'm a Catholic man and a strong Christian, and at the same time, at A level, I did divinity, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. I read the Bible and I know what nature says. And well, the Almighty God, I thought it wise that Adam was a bad man. And you remember what was done. At least that is some primary knowledge. Of creation. Yes, that is some primary knowledge. However, I don't know why, when you talk about human rights, the line is drawn on the gay stuff and whatever. I'm not a subscriber of that culture. Uganda has a very rich culture. I'm a Muganda by tribe, and I respect my culture so much. However, I think the government should also look at other human rights. When you look at the abduction of citizens who are innocent, these are also human rights. They have no case to answer. They have no crime that was committed. I think, well, if at all we have put a lot of energy on the gayism and also lesbianism and all that, let us also look at other human rights. Let us give it a balance. If at all we do believe in protecting or in the protection of human rights, let us balance the boat, okay? This will give us a very firm foundation as a nation, people who stand for human rights. But now when you look at the Uganda Human Rights Convention, the people who are in charge, someone comes up and she says that we don't know about this, that these people are lying. No one is in prison. At the same time, the Prime Minister, the head of government business, comes out that I know Awan Chibalama. Chibalama was held from here. And at the same time, she comes, the same person saying, I don't know Chibalama. So such contradictions. I think I'm a human rights activist, and I believe that we can do better beyond what we always draw a line on.
Okay, just let me play the devil's advocate here. Those minorities, those sexual minorities, do they have a right?
To do what?
Do they have a right to practice what they believe in?
It's not an absolute right.
Well, each society has...
Sorry? I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, because there are those out there who will ask this question, but wait, okay, these people, don't they have this right?
Well, in society, actually beyond the constitution, there are procedures, way of behavior, just on a societal level. Let me assume, okay, village, we have ways of behaving. And if at all a society comes up and says that this is how things should be done, and surely it's out of moral conduct.
That becomes the law also.
You know, moral conduct, law of operation. I believe we should abide, and this makes I a law-abiding citizen. So for me, I do believe in what is right.
Okay, do you think community can have 100% consensus on anything? they cannot, right? So what happens to the opinions of those who are dissenting, however few they are? Yeah.
Why would we?
Democracy comes
Why
to
would
play.
we go to? Why would we go with the
What
minority?
happens to do they cease to exist? Do they cease to be part of that community? Do they become outlawed?
Well,
Do they?
if at all someone subscribes to that sect, one of the reasons as to why we need change, I studied this in entrepreneurship. One of the reasons as to why people need to change is because they need to change. So once a society comes out and says that this is what is supposed to be done, and this is our culture, and this is right, I think we need to change to what is right.
Okay, fair enough. Ivan, what's your opinion about this?
Well, thank you very much, Comrade Moses. I listened to Lawel struggling with English. I'm told he's a human rights defender. You see, no, and I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. But you see, the point with, or the challenge that all human rights defenders face is that you see, you never get to choose which rights to defend and which ones not to.
Not to defend.
You get it? Because they are all human rights.
No, yeah.
So I listened to him wrapping it up with a lot of English. But the point is this, that, you see, and this debate is one that has come at a very opportune moment. That you put these homosexuality sort of issues aside. I mean, we have issues like abortion in the US. I think you all remember the case of Roe v. Wade.
Roe v. Wade, yeah.
So, we have issues like surrogacy. The Pope, I think, of recent was in the news talking about surrogacy and whether the Catholic Church as a whole would allow for surrogate motherhood. Homosexuality, surrogacy, abortion, things like incest have now taken the world by storm. So why is this so? That, you see, culture evolves. Culture evolves. I listened to my president here saying he's a Muganda man and a staunch one at that. And I think he can bail me out. But you see, for example, if the rituals that used to be undertaken, say, during introduction ceremonies here in Uganda, that time are not the same rituals that are taken. The point may remain the same, but they are now not as as staunchly or religiously followed. You see the Bako jumping and dancing and really in very traditional way. So it shows you that culture evolves. So the point is this, that the essence of every democracy is that, you see, because the majority take advantage of tyranny of numbers, they will always have the day. The challenge is, what of the minority? Will they have their say? And this is where minorities like these come up. That in countries like the US, in actually the West, you can never win a case against minorities, because democracy and the constitution was essentially put in place to defend them, to have them have their say. I think what we would say is it's sort of propaganda. This is actually propaganda that's being peddled by a certain group that owns money, that runs capital, that funds movie actors and producers in Hollywood and Silicon Valley. And if you do not have an LGBTQ character in one of your movies, you won't get funding. These are the people that send aid to Africa. These are the people that literally control the world. So
can these people be helped? I don't know, because personally I'm interested in the biological solution. Because I don't think the law per se might address this, but can these people be helped? Isn't there some sort of medication or what? I don't know. Can the scientists help us
Actually, I
with
remember.
Congolese people?
I remember the day.
Or it is actually normal for someone to feel
The
that
debate
way.
starts from recognizing whether it's a disease or an abnormality,
Yes,
or
exactly.
it is a natural thing.
Because if it is
Neurological
normal,
mutation.
if it is normal, then we won't need the scientists to maybe devise some solution of the sort. But if it is not, then
It's not a debate as a poor
I think,
country.
like he has said, scientific research has proven not to be conclusive on this matter. But the day this judgment was given, I remember we had a Twitter space, an X space, and I know you know he's one of your comrades, the Hammer, Obo Johnson, alluded or spoke something to the effect of that, what we call conversion therapy. That can these people be given help? That and the sort of help he was explaining was get them a beautiful brown woman and put them in a room together, and put them in a room together. Maybe this young man will change. So, but you see, he's a psychologist. Conversion therapy is actually outlawed in the field of medicine. That because scientific research, as he has said, sometimes attributes such sexual deviant behavior to hormonal imbalances, sometimes to nature. You live among a community of those people. You know, they say bad company spoils what? Good character. So sometimes, because it's a cocktail of all these factors that scientific research has not proven conclusive, these people end up who they are. But history shows us we've had sexual deviants here. We've had names for them, which means they existed long before the propaganda you see in the media being propagated by the huge capitalists that aim at, say, creating a social order where you're fewer and you're easier to control. So I think I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, Andrew, you have the final words.
About the recent ruling?
Yes, and that context,
The topic.
as a straight man.
I'm a very... By the, for the record, you know, the topic of homosexuality is one where, you know, they say every general rule has an exemption. For this, the homosexuality has become an exemption. For me, normally, I do not question why people do the things they do, the way they do them, for as long as they're adults and it brings them happiness. But here is the what? The exemption to the general rule. There is everything wrong with homosexuality. That is not who we are as a people. And we are not going to take it lightly. We are very serious on this. Parliament has come up with the legislation. The sections therein are very clear, and it is going to be implemented. I know people will say Uganda is party to several international conventions that protect the rights and the rights of minorities and all that, but that doesn't take away the fact that we are a sovereign country, and we can always exercise our independence in a way we pass our legislations and the laws and what we want and what is good for us as a people. It is been on record that generally, as a country, Ugandans don't want homosexuals. And that is not something we are going to shy about. We are very open, and we are going to be very radical for any fear of, without any fear of contradiction. I want to state this. We shall be very radical on this because it is not good for us as a people. It is really not good for us, and we are not okay with it. For me, the culture where I come, I happen to come from Bondibujo. That is among the Bamba Babwis. Even me saying that a man is going to have carnal knowledge or sexual intercourse with a fellow man is extremely very outrageous. You get? It is weird, extremely awful. It is not something you can even imagine. So, generally, that is not for us. What do? I know these colleagues of ours, because I know they are our people. I happen to have a relative who is a transgender. But they are in
He has two parts. He or she has two parts.
I'll explain to you that after. But these guys, for the start, they will be in denial. You get? But with time, they'll accept that the society they are in actually does not want what they claim to be who they are. So it is either they adjust accordingly to what suits us as a people, or have themselves excuse themselves from this society. Because at the end of it all, the law is very clear. You get? The law on homosexuality is very clear. And police and all other state authorities will enforce the same. We've seen our leaders have also come out clearly on their position in regards to that matter. There have been so many threats in regards to foreign aid and all that. But that's when I got to know that this country is very serious on the homosexuality question. By the time our top leaders, Parliament and the President himself, comes out clearly to say that, if your aid is tagged to the fact that you want us to tolerate and push for homosexuals and all that, please
Keep your aid.
Please keep it. We don't want it. Let us suffer. Let us die. So, someone who is homosexual, wherever you are, you should know that the country is, you should know that the country is very serious on this question. So, as I have seen, I've always been looking for some of those values that unite us as a people. I think this is one value that has united some people in the opposition. Though other people, their position, their stance is not yet clear. They are still there. They are not open on what their clear stance on homosexuality is. But at least I have seen to a greater...
Actually, I thought Bruno would say something about that, because his party leader has I think it was last week, where he took a picture with some gentleman, yes, who was trying to applaud him for protecting and advancing the rights of...
Yeah, I also saw that. I also had the video.
What have you to say?
So again, it comes back
Actually,
to the point
when I looked for that tweet,
Not
it
in
wasn't
the
existing, so I
it was
think
deleted.
no, it wasn't deleted. It might have been maybe an edit, so I don't think.
But again, it
It
comes to
happened
what
to
I'm
have
saying.
seen...
If he claims to be a human rights defender, they are party leader. You don't get to choose which rights to defend and which ones not to.
Am I allowed to debunk?
For me, one thing...
Our time is out.
You can't let it
is,
run
Our time is out. Our time is out.
One thing I remember about
Lawel.
about his party leader, there is when he was trying to make his case in regards to the same matter. But still, for me, how I made it was that he was in support. He said some time back they had banned him from going to the UK because of being open about that question and trying to outcast homosexuals and all that. But now, since he became a leader, he became tolerant, and he says any other people, whether minority or what, have the right to enjoy their rights.
Was it surely like that? Was it?
That was it, and that is his position as per now. But as a country, I want to state it clearly: we are very open. We are not okay with the issue of homosexuality.
Thank you.
We are Christians, and our country motto is very clear: for God and our country. We are not going to mix it with any other things that are not godly.
Thank you. Lawel, just in 10 seconds.
I think I just want to respond to the statement that you can't choose what human rights to defend or not. To say that is to suppose that there is no debate on what is a human right or not. I defend the rights I think that are accepted as human rights within the context where I exist.
Thank you. Thank you, Lawel, for your time. Your Excellency Kamoga, Professor, thank you for your time. And from the Yellow Youth Movement, Andrew, thank you very much for your time. Of course, to the viewers, I continue to wish you a happy Eid. To put this all together, I'll just use the words of Henry Barlow. In his article, Building the Nation, he said that in whatever you do, just make a contribution towards building a nation. If it is in terms of paying your taxes, please pay those taxes, because eventually we all have a role to play towards building the nation Uganda. Until next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.